Welcome to Ville's third webinar in our 30th anniversary webinar series, More Than Just Fundraising, Community Building Through Our Annual Citrus Sale. My name is Star Gale. I'm the Executive Director at Labrie, and I will be the moderator for this webinar.
So I'm going to start out with the outline of the webinar so that you can know what to expect. So we're going to start with a little bit of an explanation of what the Labrie Citrus Sale fundraiser is. And then we're going to go into the main body of the webinar, which is the Labrie citrus story. And we'll be joined at that time by our guest speakers, who are two members of the citrus committee, Sandra Baines and Marianne Metrakos. And then we'll have a little video at the end that's about 6 minutes long called Special Memories from Citrus Sales Past and Thoughts for the Future. And also during the Labrie citrus story, we'll also have many videos and interviews of people that have been involved with the citrus sale. And then we're going to close off, as we've done with all of our webinars, with a question and answer period at the end. So to start with, what is the Labrie citrus sale fundraiser? Well, a citrus fundraiser, many of you might know about them, some of you might not. The Labrie citrus sale was the first one that I ever found out about. It's an opportunity for a community or an organization to raise funds by facilitating the delivery of fresh Florida citrus fruit from Florida to their local neighborhood. And it's usually during the winter months. I think it always is, because that's when the harvests are. And there's a distributor that you will connect with, and there's literally just a span of a few days between when the fruit is picked and put on the truck and when it arrives. So it's a real treat for people that live in our local area. Here at Labrie, except for 2020, because of the COVID pandemic, we hosted what we call the citrus sale, or the citrus sale fundraiser, every year since 1998. And I have to say, last year, even though we weren't able to hold the sale, notably the forward thinking of our citrus committee and one of our committee members, Barbara Bishop, and others, they reached out to the customers we've had over the years, and we received donations in lieu of their regular contribution when they buy citrus, which is fantastic. And we just can't thank everybody enough for that. And I think it shows the generosity of the people that are involved, but also their connection to this. And in those 22 years, the citrus sale has raised almost $250,000, so over almost $250,000 that goes to our general mission. And that means that it's delivered tons upon tons of fresh fruit to Montrealers. But I think one of the things that we really focus on is this webinar is that it's not just the financial side, but it's also become an invaluable community building event for Labrie. And to begin to explain the history of the sale, how we inherited it, I am going to play our first video from two Labrie members that describe their connection to Labrie, their connection to the sale, and how we inherited it from the Royal Victoria Hospital Palliative Care Unit.
At the time that the citrus sale changed over from palliative care to Labrie, I actually was working in palliative care at the Vic. I think Mary was retiring and nobody was really ready to step into her place and do all the work, but I certainly didn't make the decision to take it on. But somehow there were enough people involved and that it happened.
And I think it was shortly after I was brought onto the board of Labrie on Ville. I came in as a representative of Temple Emmanuel, and Sheila Goldblum, who had been on the board, was retiring from the board, and she wanted somebody else from Labrie, from Temple Emmanuel, on the board of Labrie, and I'd never heard of Labrie on Ville, and it was suggested that I go there, and I did, and there I was. And president at the time was Anne Reed, and Anne was incredibly passionate about Labrie. Mind you, I don't know anybody who's been involved with Labrie who wasn't passionate about Labrie, but she used to say to me, if I ever have time, I want to sit down with you and I want to tell you how strongly I feel about this. I don't think she ever found the time. She was just very busy with it, but she was very motivated, and she was very good at motivating people. And, once, whether it was at a board meeting or after a board meeting, she called me, I'm not sure. And she said, we've got this opportunity for a fundraiser. Would you be willing to head it up with Pat? And I said, I don't know if I could head anything up, but and of course I was told I would be given all kinds of help and etc. So I said okay, because I didn't have a job at Labrie, and that's how it started.
So now I'd like to invite Sandra Baines and Marianne Metrakos. I'd like to ask you to both introduce yourself.
My name's Sandra Baines. I'm a board member and volunteer at Labrie. I was invited to a meeting at the home of Pat Hamilton, and that was my first introduction, I guess, to the citrus sale. But I was approached probably because I'd been responsible for the outreach committee at the church, St. Andrew's Dominion Douglas Church. And that congregation had a couple of volunteers who were involved at Labrie right from the beginning. And our congregation also financed the insurance for the first apartment that was opened on Monk right at the beginning of Labrie. So I went to the meeting and I met Marianne for the first time, and I guess that was the beginning of our friendship and our working together at Labrie. It was later that I got involved more with both the residents and as a member of the board. But I remember that meeting very well. There was a large group of people, and I became an agent selling citrus, and I had a captive audience as a member of the St. Andrew's Dominion Douglas congregation. And I know many of the customers that I had continued to buy fruit throughout the whole 20 plus years that we've been selling it. So it's been great fun.
Thank you, Sandra. And Marianne, I think many people here don't need an introduction to you, but please introduce yourself.
Well, my name's Marianne Metrakos, and I first heard about Ville when I was doing a student stage at the Allen Memorial, and I took a client to visit Ville. He moved into a Ville apartment and lived there for many, many, many years. And in the process, I met Maureen and heard about Ville, and I was really, really impressed and thought it was a fantastic program. After that, the next year I became a volunteer. And then I did another stage at Abri. And then when Maureen went away on a sabbatical, I was hired as coordinator. And during that time, I was also invited as a coordinator to Pat Hamilton's house to hear about the project. That's where I met Sandra. That's where I first heard about the project. And soon we decided to take it on with the palliative care's help. They gave us a wonderful guideline, a step-by-step guideline, and that's where it all started. That was my introduction to it.
I'm going to share something here, and I would like you guys to tell me what we're looking at.
Okay, well, these are what we call the distribution days. You'll see the table there where people are coming with their money and getting their names ticked off and picking up the orders. You can see the boxes of fruit stacked up in the background of that larger picture. And on the right-hand side, the picture of the volunteers who were there to collect the money and organize the people to gather their fruit. It arrived, it was always early in December when we had the delivery, and all of the orders are taken in advance. People had to order, and we had to get our orders into the office by, I think, the beginning of the November. So we had about a month to organize the rest of the stuff. So that's the, I guess, Leslie Hall at Mountainside United Church.
Yeah, on the first level there.
Yep.
And Marianne, could you tell me a little bit about what else we're looking at here?
Well, there's at first, this is a picture of after we had done it for a few years. We're quite a bit more organized. On the table, you'll see little bright patches for some orange and yellow stickers. And when a person came in, they said what their order was, they paid for it, and they were given a piece of paper saying what their order was, which went to the floor, and the people, all the volunteers helping on the floor, would help them find their order. Before that, it was, oh, what did I say? Oh, I forgot what you said. Oh, and all things like that. This idea came from Barbara Bishop, and it was fantastic. And Carol DeCoven, who got us all online, she also divided it up. At the front of the tables, you can see vaguely some letters, which we divided the list alphabetically, and that way we could serve 3 people at a time instead of one big long line waiting for one person at a book. So as we went along, we got more and more help from our committee and from other people's suggestions, and we became more organized.
Yeah, and I think the next video that we have actually talks about that process. I'm going to play that now.
We got a list of customers from the palliative care. So we started off with a customer base.
We did it all by telephone. And so you telephone the people and took their orders, and you telephone them to tell them that the order was in and this was the date, God willing, that they could pick up. And it seemed to work pretty well.
The orders used to come in on paper. They were not the orders were not computerized. We would send the agents would call people. They would give them the order. We would the agent would then drop off all these papers at my house, and I ended up entering them all.
And then I think Carol DeCoven, I know Carol DeCoven was more computer literate than most, and she volunteered to computerize the list. And so I just went ahead and started it. I mean, for me, working with computers was easy. I had just finished a few years before. I had just finished my master's in computer science, so I could do that.
And so when we were talking about this and we were meeting with other members of the Citrus Committee, one of the things that we really wanted to do in planning this webinar is we wanted to help people to understand these key steps in the fundraiser's evolution over the last 23 years that helped it to function. So the digitizing of the customers' lists certainly made it easier to manage the customers that we had at the time, but it also allowed us to kind of grow. And I'd like you guys to talk more about that, because I think there's probably a lot of other community organizations that would see a fundraiser like this and not really be able to identify how those little changes and key steps make all the difference in making it so that other people can just join the system that's there.
Well, as Carol said, and Pat, a lot of it was done by telephone. So people were telephoning in their orders, but a lot of people delivered their orders to the office. They would come on scrap paper. They would come on old envelopes. They had doodles on them. Sometimes we'd have to phone back the agent and ask them what it was they had written, and they couldn't even make it out. We couldn't make things out. We were making a lot of mistakes. We were ordering too many boxes or not enough boxes. And Carol got a lot delivered to her house, and then I would take these little pieces of paper over to her, and she took it on to figure them out and sort it out. And that was amazing. And it just helped us move forward and do it much more efficiently and more easily. So.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think as agents, once we all got used to using email to contact all of our agents rather than phoning, which is the way we started out phoning, taking the orders over the phone, as Carol and Marianne has said, writing everything down on a little paper form and sometimes faxing it. I think we sometimes had used faxes in those days also. But later, email allowed us also to say to our customers, if you know anybody else, please pass this message on to your friends. And I know both my son and my daughter were very good about telling this young generation and more recently, some of them have little kids and they just love the oranges and the grapefruit. So that's another way I think that Star's reference to kind of expanding the community. This internet life that we're all living has really made that so much more possible than back in the day when we used the phone or word of mouth, whatever. So I think it was thanks to, I think Barbara Bishop was the first person that really talked about making her big group email list, and we caught on. Worked very well.
And I'm gonna share another video interview, and in this one we have a chance to hear from some of the ways that different members were able to kind of grow from that system that was put in place.
One day when I went to a mass on Sunday, Marianne Metrakos was talking about L'Abri en Ville. Said she's looking for furniture and help, etc. And I said to her after, I said, look, I've got some furniture that I'd be very happy to donate. After that, I got involved in another apartment, which I loved cooking. So I did once a week, I would bring a meal, complete meal with dessert, soup, etc. to them. And on their birthdays, I take them out to a chicken place. And I did that for about 22 years.
Well, my name is Mary Martha Gee, and I've been involved with L'Abri for 21 years. I joined L'Abri because of Mary Quinlan, who was a young girl who had gone to school with me when we were all young. And she came to Loyola Chapel one time and spoke about her life, which was really difficult, and how she lived at L'Abri and what it meant to her. And it was so inspiring. And at that point, I was looking for some volunteer work. So I thought, oh, that sounds terrific.
My name is Joan Isar. When I met Mary Martha Gee, and she told me about her involvement at L'Abri, it kind of lit up a light in my head. And I said, oh, that would be something that would interest me. And I've enjoyed it so much. I love my friends at the Park Apartment. They're the best.
I was an apartment volunteer, and I'm sure I was asked if I would like to phone some people and see if they buy oranges and grapefruits. And then, then the time comes and you go and sit at one of the tables and you see everybody you know. You would sit there at a table with friends either side, and people would line up to come and pick up their oranges and grapefruits. And you would see people that you hadn't seen since high school. And suddenly, and lots of them, because they would be on somebody's other list. And suddenly it was a terrific community feeling.
So I said to myself, well, if I'm just going to go there and get a box of oranges, it's not going to do too much, is it? So I got the idea, well, I live in a high-rise building. I'll just sit downstairs at the entrance and grab everybody as they're coming home in the evening, sign them up, and that's how I got the orders. And then I go and pick them up with my car. And the superintendent lends me his big chariot, his wagon, load them on, and I start at the 10th floor and I work my way down, delivering.
I have another question for you, Richard.
Oh.
About how many names do you think were on your customer list from St. Ignatius?
I can't remember. I have it somewhere, but I can't remember, but at least 125, because Father Fitz was on the board at that time, and he asked if I would talk about the citrus sale. So I started talking about the citrus sale for about maybe 20 years, and we often sat out in the lobby for a couple of services, and we made up lists of people who would buy citrus sales.
So those videos were great. They were so much fun to film and to chat with people, because I got an opportunity to see how those systems that were put in place brought in people that had been volunteers from all different ways. I just wanted to say too, when Richard was mentioning his list, how organic and creative the community building was around citrus. But it also reminded me of another really legendary citrus list and the different ways people would do it. And that's Mary Bassett, who is a dear L'Abri community member. that recently passed, and her name came up so often because even though we had these new ways of doing things, Mary, her whole time as a citrus agent, stuck to the old school way, and that was still okay too. And she called everybody, and she managed a huge citrus list. I guess also that brings us to, I think there was more than 125 people on Richard Tobin's list. And so we're talking about a lot of fruit. A regular truckload that would come up for one of these distributions days would arrive with thousands of boxes or hundreds of boxes weighing thousands of pounds. How did we make this work?
Well, I could talk a little bit about the setting up, and then maybe Sandra can talk about the people that helped us a little bit. Sandra and I usually arrive first around 8 o'clock in the morning because we had to go in the basement of the church and find big tarps that we left there from year to year, get them up and cover the floor to protect the floor from people, all the people coming in, and perhaps the weather if it was bad. So we would get that down, and at the same time, Afric and Carol would arrive with Montreal bagels and wonderful fruit and make coffee for all the volunteers to have something nice for breakfast. And Margaret Legale had for many years made muffins that we would bring up there. The company that we ordered the fruit through would arrive with a system of conveyor belts, which when the truck arrived, they would connect it to the truck. Mm-hmm. And so about 2,000 boxes of fruit went down that conveyor belt and into the room. And some years we had to get them ourselves at the end because of complications, but most often we had help. Sandra maybe can tell you about the wonderful help we had.
Yes, well, the big help that we had was the Concordia Stingers hockey team that had been recruited through one of our late members, Sheila Brand, had a contact, I think, at Concordia. And those guys and it was exam time for them, they came to unload the van and set the boxes up in Leslie Hall so that we could, Tees Hall, so we could organize ourselves to distribute them. And then later in the day, we had students recruited from the local schools. Loyola students were faithful and are still faithful volunteers, and Selwyn House. We had a lot of community support in making the physical work of this thing happen, because as we got older, we realized, gosh, this is quite a bit of work. It all came together really nicely. And, it was really fun for us to see the young kids there, and also a little bit of an educational experience for them to understand why we were doing this, to support people with mental illness and to extend our goodwill to the community. So I think it was a good learning experience for lots of those young people as well. And I remember the one thing about the Stingers, they used to time their unloading. They would set a stopwatch for when they started, and every year they were trying to beat the time of the previous year's team who had done it. And I remember a couple of times when they had a reporter from their university newspaper there also to write a story about it. And I think you're going to show some pictures of these guys, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a great video where Carol again joins us and talks a little bit about the history of the student involvement. I'll play that now.
Our first sale, we got a group of St. George's students come in. That didn't work out terribly well that particular year for the simple reason that the order ended up coming in very, very late. By the time the order came in, the kids were just too busy having a good time themselves. And I don't know how we managed to unload that truck, but somehow we did it. We were younger, and they helped a bit, and that was it. We reached out to other schools. The best thing was when we managed to get Concordia, the Stingers. And that was Sheila Bren, may she rest in peace, lovely lady. She had a very good friend, whose name I can't recall, who knew the coach of the Concordia Stingers. And he got in touch with him, and he said, sure, my boys will come and unload the trucks. And ever since then, every year, they showed up, during exam time, which is unbelievable. And And they ended up having a contest with themselves for the previous year. You know, their coach would time them how long it took them to unload the truck.
So
Could I just say one thing? Because
yeah.
it's the majority of the time it was relaxed and friendly, but I have to tell you, it was a little tense sometimes when 40-pound boxes of oranges and grapefruits were flying through the air as they were tossing them and catching them so they could beat their time from the previous year. So.
Yeah, and the commotion, it's so early in the morning and they would just come ready to go, and talking and laughing and getting through those bagels and muffins pretty quick too.
Yeah.
But the students that we had that came, and the stingers weren't the only help that we had. Certainly not the only lifting help we had either. Do you want to talk a little bit about the residents' involvement, Sandra?
Yes, sure. Well, we got the residents involved really right from the beginning. They would come in the morning to help with getting the things set up. The stronger boys, young men or men, period, would help shift the boxes, onto dollies and take them out to the cars in the parking lot for people who needed help. We really counted on all of them to be there, and they came with lots of enthusiasm and energy. And the other thing that was good in terms of the residents being involved, it was an opportunity for them to sell the cards that they had been making every year. And many of our citrus customers also took the opportunity to buy those hasty notes and holiday cards. One year we even had some nice hand-painted Christmas decorations. So there was always a table set up for the residents to show their stuff. And I believe they used their funds from that for their own social activities during the year. So it was good. And then the other thing they did that was really helpful is when we had some no-shows, people who hadn't come to pick up their fruit. So by the second day, we recruited volunteers to phone and remind people. And I think they did that actually throughout the whole course of the sale to remind people of the pickups. So they were a big part of it. Wow. And of course, all of our board members and volunteers were there, as you saw in the earlier picture, like working on the desk and helping on the floor. So we had everybody at L'Abri involved in this, including you guys, the coordinators and the staff.
Well, I have I'm sure you're not surprised, I have a little video where the residents talk a little bit about their involvement as well. I'll play that now.
L Abri. I've been a resident at L'Abri on Ville since June 30th, 2016. And how I got involved with the citrus sale was my first citrus sale was that same year in December, and it was great. I enjoyed it. I got involved right away the minute I walked in the door. It's good because I got to interact with the people by carrying the boxes by hand or using the dolly. It was good, but it was challenging because it was winter and there's black ice, so you have to be extra careful. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
My name is Jerome Kieran. I first became involved with the L'Abri citrus sale when we first decided we were going to accept it from the palliative care unit. When I was younger, I was stronger and could lift up heavy boxes and wheel them out to the cars. I acted as a citrus agent. I sold oranges and grapefruits to people where I worked. I've been involved with the bookkeeping and the treasurership of the resident card fund, and we sold cards to suppliers of fruit around the beginning of December every year. So we've used the funds to go on resident activities.
So as well as selling oranges and grapefruits, we also sold the Christmas or ordinary cards that the residents had made the year before or in the spring. Gail Eakin and myself would get them all together wherever L'Abri was at the time, and they would paint wonderful things. So we would have a wonderful time making the very best out of all the cards. And we tried to be sure that every single person who came to the painting session got a card in the sale.
So the distribution days, I think we've given a really good description. I hope we have. I hope people have an idea right now, because they're a whirlwind of different L'Abri community members coming together, different people that are only connected to L'Abri from the broader community, like the students and customers and other volunteers during the sale. All kinds of different members. But there's a couple members I wanted to share with you, Marianne, and I wanted to ask you about these two members that would join us. So we've got two members actually taken at the citrus sale.
Okay, so we were there all day Monday, probably 12 hours, most of Tuesday and Wednesday for cleanup, a lot of time. So sometimes we had to take our dogs up with us. And they were also, I mean, the whole atmosphere was very relaxed. The dogs were also a great addition because they wanted to greet people and everybody wanted to pat the dogs. So it just added to the whole atmosphere. Sharon also brought her dog Harry because she would come up and do the finances, the deposits every night for hours, and her dog would be there. And if you noticed in the picture which of the dogs was the boss, because there was one dog bed, and it was the little dog that the smallest one was, of course, the one that's saying, "This is my bed." But they were all very compatible.
Yeah. It's a remarkable environment, and I'm going to play a couple videos next that kind of show that go from people who have multi layers of involvement with L'Abri, and even that the connection that they had, even if they had these formal roles at L'Abri, was so relaxed, and it was so communal there at the distribution days, even when they were doing important things related to the fundraising part of it. And I think, you know, this is one of the last sections where we're going to have the panel discussion before we play the next two videos and then our last compilation video. And I just want to say, you know, from my perspective, in the position I have now, but I've been a coordinator, I know the last year we had the sale, Michelle Mills took on the role of the coordinator in the citrus sale, which is a huge connection and support for the office, and did a great job. Vishaka, who's our other coordinator, her first kind of introduction was to the citrus sale. And it's so important to the organization for that, because it gives us an opportunity to bring someone new in and say, on these days, you can really see this kind of dynamic network of an organization, and you really get a lens to see how wide it is. So I'm going to play those two videos, and then maybe you and Sandra could say bye just shortly, because you'll be joining us again for the question and answer period. So I'll play those next two videos now.
Sharon Scott here. I'm the treasurer of L'Abri en Ville. Bob Bassett came to see me and said, "Could you do me a favor and balance my books?" I think it was probably 27 years ago, but I didn't know that he and Anne Reed had cooked up something and knew that I would get hooked by doing the books, and they were right. So of course, about a couple of weeks later, I got a call. And it was Anne Reed and Bob Bassett saying, "Of course, you will stay on now as treasurer." And what am I going to say? I said, yes. So here I am. Well, the citrus sale, I guess it was because somebody needed to come and count the money and bank it. And as treasurer, I was invited to do so. Why did Harry come with me? Well, Harry is my emotional support dog. And because he's with me 24/7, including at my store, he's become very used to people hugging him and kissing him and talking to him. So it was a great place for him to be because the residents were there, the volunteers and the public. So it continued his training of being an emotional support dog, and everybody got to enjoy him.
So storing fruit at your office, tell me a little bit about that.
Storing fruit in my store was great, because some years I would have like 30 boxes, and It would just make a massive wall in my store down the middle, and people would come and they'd pick up their fruit and give me their money. And it took a couple of days, probably 3 or 4 days, for it to complete the process. And my shoppers got to hear about La Brionville's orange sale. So it was amusing on all levels.
Will Sharp. I first heard about La Brionville through a friend of mine, a childhood friend. His mom, Sandra Baines, has been involved with La Brionville for a number of years. I'd say about 7 or 8 years ago, I started hearing about the citrus sale through her, as well as actually another childhood friend's mom, Dinah Bennett. Every year when it comes time to pick up the citrus, actually even before then, when we start our order, I get in touch with my mom, who places an order, my brother, who places an order, and for myself. So basically, it's kind of boiled down to, in the past few years, that I go pick up the order for all 3 kind of households, which is great. So when I go over to what has usually been the Outside United Church to pick up the different orders for my other family members, I usually pick a time where my friend Sandra Baines is working, and so there are a couple times in the year where we get to catch up, and often one of the times there is at the citrus sale, and so I go get my order, and Sandra's usually working the actual fruit itself of loading them up on all the dollies, and so I usually get a good 5 or 10 minutes with her as I get to chat and catch up, and so it's always nice to take that home to do it. And that's how we first started getting involved on the citrus and sale side of things, and later through my connection with Sandra Baines, La Brionville needed some support with some payroll, and as an accountant, I kind of took on that role with La Brionville as well, and so I've kind of had a kind of 2 points of involvement with La Brionville.
I think that kind of brings us to the end of that section, the main section. I wanted to thank you, Sandra and Marianne. I've worked with both of you for so many years, but honestly, Marianne too, you're the one who brought me in here, and I'm just so grateful on behalf of all of L'Abri. We're so grateful that you're still taking part in the citrus sale and that you're still contributing in ways like this. You really mean a lot to L'Abri. Thank you both for joining us so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we watch the video and go into Q&A?
No, thanks. It's been a pleasure to be involved in this, Star. Really, it's been great.
Okay.
It has been. Thank you very much. And I just would say to anybody another organization who wants to start this, it's well worth it for the community building part, and for the strengthening of your own organization. And also it's not something to be afraid of. It's something quite manageable. And we would have a really organized timeline to pass on to another group. So, and maybe people in L'Abri who haven't been involved will now think, hey, I want to get more involved, because it is really quite pleasant. It's like seeing old friends and having a good visit every year. So thank you.
Thank you. And they'll still be here because they'll be joining us for the question and answer period. So now I'm going to play that final video that I spoke about, which is a compilation video. It's some special memories, but also some thoughts for the future as a good way to kind of kick off the question and answer period.
So many special people involved that are no longer with us, and that is a special memory.
Because I used to go with another resident who lived at L'Abri for a long time, who is no longer with L'Abri or is no longer living, which is sad to hear. He showed me all around the ropes how to do it, what's the best way to do it, to bend or carrying the box, not to pull out your back. It was fun. I enjoyed it. We even came the last day to help clean up, and it was like everybody was happy that we came, but that it wasn't necessary, and we said no, it's necessary.
Every year, Margaret Legale would bake muffins for the boys and for those of us who were working at the start of the sale. She would bake muffins, and she was always there and always eager to help.
The night before every sale, there were a lot of silent prayers being said, and it's worked out all the time. We have never once had to cancel it, so that was brilliant. That was really lucky. I think we had good luck. And it was always fun. It was always fun. There would be Sharon's dog was always part of the sales. I can remember. Everybody participated, and it was just almost like a party. It was just like a party.
Well, it's easy. I mean, you know, it's a good product, and everybody needs oranges. Would like to have some oranges, so people get together, and even people who live alone in my building were taking a box and finding people to share it with, and so forth, and happy to contribute to L'Abri. And also, a lot of people have been very generous and given me donations to give to L'Abri in addition to paying for their box of oranges. That was really nice.
And it's also kind of funny what each household I pick up for ends up doing with the fruit. My mom tends to make a lot of fruit salad, which she enjoys, both for her and her either boyfriend or some other my siblings. My other brother, him and his girlfriend just tend to eat it as is. And what I like about it for myself is I basically, from the time I pick up in December until the time I go through it in January, I just make myself fresh fruit juice every morning, which ends up being a really real treat for those 2 months of the year. So it's really something to look forward to that time of the year.
Now, Father Fitz was my biggest customer. He'd buy 7 boxes and take them down to the depot, the food depot, every year. Yeah, he really loved L'Abri.
A special memory are the people. You know, the people that worked with us. They were really special, and it was always. I mean, I'm not surprised by the goodness of human nature, but it's always so good to see it in action with all our volunteers.
I think it's important, if it's possible, to continue the citrus sale, because I think it's a wonderful way for L'Abri to get its name out there, to remember every single year that we're there, the work we're doing, and to raise the money. I do see a problem because the last few years when I was calling people, a lot of people were older, could not get to the church to pick up stuff. So I feel unless we get younger people involved and get a new list of people to approach, it would, and also the fact that we've lost the church as a place to distribute it. Those are real stumbling blocks, but I think we should try to overcome them somehow.
Aging of our volunteer population, and also the aging of some of our residents, so they, you know, some of them are no longer, you know, quite able to pick up a box of oranges and bring them to somebody's car. But some of those things are solved with the kids from school. I think we need to find new sources of customers. Younger customers, younger families who would be very happy to have all this fresh fruit, and of course it would be nice to see it grow and have it raise more funds for L'Abri. I know that the funding is necessary. Important.
People have actually this year, this past December, have called me up and said, "Hey, well, why aren't you selling oranges and grapefruit this year?" Well, that was because of the pandemic, of the COVID pandemic. And we also, the other problem we had with challenges and benefits was we're not sure if we're going to be able to use the same church as the depot as we had for the past 20 years or those 22 years.
I feel the challenge is to find a locale, and the locale has to be as perfect as that church was, because you need some parking and you need the large room. But I think it is a part of fundraising that involves so many people. Fundraisers that involve a lot of people are really successful, I think, on more than one account. They're good for the organization. So I know a lot of my customers were very sad this year when there was no citrus. I would hope that we could do it, but I think it's a big challenge.
We thank all the staff and all the residents and volunteers for all the support they've given to myself and all the other residents. And I just want to say happy 30th L'Abri. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the presentation. So now we're in our question and answer period. People can start their video if they would like. If they have a question, they can unmute themselves and ask a question. But also, if you're not sure how to do that, you can also type in the chat box and I can check in with you. And I invite everybody to kind of say hello. I know we've called these question and answer periods at the end of all the webinars, but they've also been a chance for everybody to see one another because we don't get to come together. There you are.
There's my picture.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. Mary Jose's here too.
Hi, Mary Jose. Salut, Marie Jose.
Salut. That was beautiful. I never seen that before. It's my first year to see it or know about it. And I think it's beautiful. And I also think the newsletter is beautiful about the 30th anniversary.
Thank you so much, Irene.
And I want to ask, will we have it this coming year? Like the end of the year?
Well, that's a really good question. We're trying to figure that out. And I think we kind of ended the webinar by saying, here's some of the challenges, but here's some of the benefits. And if anybody that's here wants to get involved or get more involved or have new ideas, we're here for it.
Well, we could always ask for another church to volunteer their place. Because there's so many in NDG.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Did anybody else have any other questions that they'd like to say or comments?
I thought it was a very good presentation.
I'm glad to hear, Karen. Thank you for joining us. I see Eileen is Terry-Ann there as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
It's really good to see you, Marianne. It's really good to see you, Marianne.
Hi. I have something I'd like to comment on.
Sure. Yeah.
When we were planning this, we were talking and about some of the funny situations that happened. And I just thought, if people do not have any pressing questions, I'll tell you that over the time we had quite a few challenges with weather. And one event that really stuck in my mind was we had a freezing rainstorm on the first evening of the sale. And a customer had come and parked on Roslyn Street, which is quite steep. And he'd come in that door of the church to get his fruit. And he said goodbye and he went outside. And when he apparently got to his car, he put the box down to open the door. And it was so icy, freezing rain, that his oranges started sliding down Roslyn Street, hit a bump.
Oh, no.
The box opened up and we figured that oranges rolled all the way down to Sherbrooke Street. So.
Oh, no. Oh,
And
my goodness.
He came back in and we gave him another box because he had worked very hard for that box. So.
Oh my goodness, what a coincidence.
There were lots of fun things that happened and good times. And there were stressful times when we were afraid we wouldn't sell all the fruit, but just to let everybody know that if we weren't able to sell all the fruit, one time Carol DeCoven's husband paid for the rest of the fruit, which was a wonderful gift. Wow. And we were able to donate it to a food bank, but he paid for the cost that we were out. And another year we had extras and we would always donate it to a food bank. So it always did some good somewhere.
Yeah, I think that the NDG Food Depot every year receives a couple of boxes from us in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, but sometimes it was as many as 20 boxes. It was, yeah.
So it's a really nice treat in the
yes, which is.
I was just going to add something. We had some of our agents also who bought oranges as gifts for their employees, and that was an interesting kind of customer because they decided to buy have a box of oranges and give it as a gift at the end of at the holiday season at Christmas.
Yeah, that was nice. That's a good idea.
I always
How
enjoyed.
much is a
uh,
box?
you
How
have
much
to-
is a box?
I always enjoyed selling the Christmas cards and the hasty notes.
Yeah,
me
you-
too. Me
Yes.
too, yeah.
Yeah.
Me three.
How much is the
It was
box of
always nice to
citrus?
see you guys there for the set.
Irene,
The cards.
Irene,
Yeah.
they're different prices, but we'll let you know next time for the sale. Barbara, were
Okay,
you going to ask a question? I saw that you'd unmuted yourself. Were you going to ask a question?
No, I was just listening, but I was also saying, I was also really just thinking what a great atmosphere it always was. There was something about it that was just, impossible to explain. Everybody was happy. Everybody was having a good time.
Yeah.
But if those people would be in there at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's early.
Yeah, Gail, I see Gail is here, and she would meet me the years that I was going, I think, and other people at the church with her dolly. Her dolly is a regular volunteer every year at Citrus as well.
And Jim Collins too. I remember when preparing for the citrus sale, I remember Jim Collins always volunteered his as well.
Yeah. And Michelle, you did such a great job helping to organize it too. And Vishaka really dove in. That was like her first time doing anything with Labrie, and she was there at the citrus sale.
Yeah, it was so great. I love the experience, and it was nice being able to work along with the residents and all of the volunteers and getting to meet and work with people who I hadn't met yet. For example, Carol DeCoven, I really hadn't met you yet at that point. And also getting to know the residents more and seeing what their strengths and talents were. So, Warren, Shemuel, Chris with their muscles, lifting the boxes, and Anna, honestly, I've never seen anybody, the way she would sell the hasty notes, they were like pretty much gone.
Yeah.
She did an incredible job. I think Sharon probably needs to hire her at her store. Make a lot of sales.
True.
She's really good at that.
Can I add another comment? It's not on the same line, but in two incidences, which I actually know, and there might have been more, but we had some wonderful, wonderful volunteers who unfortunately passed away during the years that I was working at L Abri en Ville. And on two of them, Raymond Haché and Audrey Bean, we had volunteers that came and worked on the floor to honor them. They were friends of theirs, and they knew that the citrus sale was very important to them, and they just wanted to do it very quietly. They didn't want a big deal made about it. They didn't want people to know about it. So they came and they worked for several hours in memory of that person, and I thought it was very special, very nice.
Yeah, it's such a touching contribution too. I know often, which is lovely when people donate, but to show up and get to know the community that way is amazing.
Yeah.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Okay, one of the things I remember the most about people with muscles and picking up heavy boxes was you, Star.
Oh, I don't know about that.
You could pick up some pretty heavy boxes. Oh, I remember that. You could when you were working as a coordinator. I was very impressed by that.
Yeah. I love it. The citrus sale for me, every year, what the citrus sale means for me is the Christmas, holidays have started. That's the first thing. It's the first kind of activity or thing that would happen where I would see all the residents, I'd see all the volunteers. And I think Carol said it really well that, you're not maybe surprised at the goodness, there's goodness in people, but it's really that genuine, it's just the atmosphere of that, where people are there to help and people are there. I don't know. I love it. It kicks off the holiday season for me in a really genuine and meaningful way.
Yeah, I have a memory of just coming into that room before, I guess I even got that actively involved in it, and that smell of all of that, the oranges and grapefruit. I guess it's the scent from the skins. I mean, it's wonderful. It makes you feel fantastic to smell that fresh freshness of the orange and grapefruit.
I have to say one thing.
Hi, Martha.
Hi. For us, I guess, for Gail and myself, I guess Christmas really started the spring before, when we get everybody together to paint holiday cards or Christmas cards. And everybody wanted to do Christmas trees. And Rick always did a Madonna. So that was really the start, you know, and then trying to make those pictures into good cards with green and red and make them so that they would sell at the citrus sale.
We had a lot of art workshops, one of which was in the middle of July at Marianne's house in Montreal West. And we had other ones at Joyce Reykjavik's house in Westbound on Vendôme. And her daughter and her husband were a part of the art workshop as well.
Nice. Nice. And I know too, I was just thinking when we were talking about it's also a day where I might be lifting things, but it gives me an excuse to eat pizzas and all the other wonderful things that are there. Africa, I know every year it comes just stocked with this kind of laundry list of all the groceries because we got to keep everybody drinking coffee and then Suzanne, who wasn't able to make it, I always had the pizzas for the students because they were basically volunteering over their dinner hour, these young boys, so we had to keep them fed. So maybe I was lifting all those heavy boxes because I was feeling a little bit guilty about all the snacks I was having during the distribution.
Hi, Gail.
Hi.
How are you, Gail?
Hi, Jerome.
Hi, Pat. Did you want to say something?
In terms of community, I was just thinking, I usually had from 12 to 14 boxes to load into my car for people who didn't have their own cars, and we deliver. And I would do that the first year or so. But one of my customers was also my family physician. And when he saw what I was doing, from then on, he came with me and he did all the lifting.
That's a nice story, Pat.
Yeah.
And Sally is another person who would pick up a lot of boxes and deliver them. Yeah, I remember her picking them up and all the boxes and bringing them to the office too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sally, you're here. Yeah, there's Sally.
Yeah. I'd always hear, "Oh, I have a box to deliver."
And Sally really had, really had a good. She would be like, "Oh, they didn't come pick up their fruit. Well, tell them that I'll bring it to them. We'll call them."
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I think we've hit we're just after 6 o'clock. If we wanted, we can wrap it up now. If anybody had any other questions, and I hope if anybody, like I said, if anybody has any ideas about the future citrus sale, if anybody has other people that they know that they think might also want to get involved, or if you just want to get more involved, we'd love to have you, and it's tons of fun. And I hope that the webinar kind of showed that.
Well, I think we should continue with the citrus fundraiser into the future, and I'd be happy to spend more time making phone calls and sending over emails and stuff like that, so we get make more sales.
That's great. Thank you, Jerome.
Good.
And thank you also to everybody. There are so many people here that helped to make this webinar and took the time to do interviews with me. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, and so much history that I didn't know before that I got to learn through the citrus sale. So thank you everybody so much for coming. And I hope everybody has a good evening and that your dinners are great. And we'll see you guys at the next webinar in July.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Hi, Marianne.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Carol. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Pat.
Thank you so
Very
much,
good.
Pat, for doing the interviews and helping out with everything. Thank you, Barbara. Bye. Have a good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
It was a great,
Thank you,
great
Star.
event. Great
Bye,
event.
guys.